All right, cool. Now, this is a song off of, is this in the background here? This off of an EP called Away Away. And yeah, this is a song that I wrote for my brother when he was going through a really hard time with mental health. And this goes out to anybody who is or has struggled with mental health and issues, depression, namely. So it's called Away Away.
Pull it over, roll the windows down. Walk in circles round this empty house. Bring you water, try and sound sincere. I know you never think about the weight until it's here. I know that it's hard. Oh, living with the sickness gonna break your heart. Away, away, away. My heart is beating so much faster. The waves, the waves, the waves are crashing like a slow disaster. But you love me and you care, and that is all I need. Yeah, you love me and you care, and that's enough for me. Yeah. Take it easy, we've been here before. Haven't I been here before? And I know that you're too weak to fight the beast alone. Oh, but brother, I'm not leaving from your bedside until it's gone. And it's an awful war. Oh, but in this world of strangers, that's what friends are for. Away, away, away. My heart is beating so much faster. The waves, the waves, the waves are crashing like a slow disaster. But you love me and you care, and that is all I need. You love me and you care, and that's enough for me. And we are bonded by the tears we've cried. And we are bonded by the light. And we are bonded by the tears we've cried. And we are bonded by the light. Away, away, away. My heart is beating so much faster. The waves, the waves, the waves are crashing like a slow disaster. But you love me and you care, and that is all I need. Yeah, you love me and you care, and that's enough for me. Yeah, that's enough for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Mitchell Rulane, the host of the podcast show for the Average Joe, the blue collar conversation, where we have average people from society. Generally, they're not all average. Everybody's special in their own way, right? But anyways, they come on the show and they talk about the things that they wrestle with, and you get to know them, especially if you're in your community. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. For more video content, go to YouTube, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for more content. Also, if you could leave us a review, that's really great. It helps us show up in the algorithms on the interwebs, and people can find us. And it's really, really awesome because we're trying to spread a message here. I don't know what the message is instinctively. Maybe I do instinctively. I don't know. Today, I have a very, 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 very special guest, Brandon, the Level Up Master Snipes.
Nice.
So when you listen back to that, there's going to be an odd. Well, you'll see. Anyway,
I've heard it on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. You watched or listened to episode with Seth
I
Farmer.
did. Yes.
What did you think of that, sir?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I enjoyed y'all's conversation a lot. One of those conversations where you wish you were in the room and could jump in. So
Yeah, my buddy Scott said he liked this podcast because he thought it was going to be more of like an interview show. He's like, no, it's really just like kind of like not to put it down, but like barroom conversation, right? Like you're like out with a buddy of yours and you're having a drink and you're shooting the breeze, talking smack, and then maybe you get pretty deep towards the end before you like say your goodbyes or something. He's like, and I feel like I had a window opened up to a conversation I shouldn't have.
yeah,
He's like, that's kind of cool. And then he ended up coming on the show when he did not want to.
I feel like those are the kind of conversations that actually get somewhere deep. The further you drag someone into the waters, their pretenses come down. So whether that's the deep waters of just a long conversation and they can't uphold a persona for too long, or in a barroom context of getting alcohol in there,
yeah,
then that
liquid
lowers
courage.
the inhibition and
Yeah.
inhibits the ego a little, and the unconscious real thoughts come out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just blew my mind there. So, giving people a little backstory on our relationship, I met you. Well, we have a mutual friend, obviously, Giorgio Ferreira. Shout out, buddy, Mr. Episode number 1. Telling you that earlier. So we kind of like I've kind of seen you through the years. We never really, I guess, like officially met or any of that stuff. But then you do this retreat, this men's retreat called Level Up, and Giorgio was going to it, and he insisted that I go because he felt like it was right up my alley. And he was also like, yeah, it's so interesting. Like when I met you, Mitch, you actually reminded me of Brandon because like you guys are very ambitious and, like believe in like you have this growth mindset and all that. And he was like, yeah, it's crazy that you all haven't crossed paths yet. But he was like, this retreat, man, you should totally go on it. And I couldn't make the last one I wanted to, but I was able to get to going to this one. And then kind of the rest is history. Why don't you tell us about Level Up? And then like real quick, people can see this. I'm repping.
The swag.
Repping the colors. But yeah, tell us about Level Up, dude.
It's an idea that my wife channeled to me one night in a conversation. She said, because I'm always learning things and telling her, so late night pillow talk conversations.
Okay.
And she's like, I don't know if this was just to get me off her case, but hey, I think you should take these ideas and run a retreat, do some workshops for guys. Whoa. And I instantly got very, very excited by that idea. So I just turned over in bed, grabbed my journal, started putting down, or maybe I grabbed my phone, started writing down different workshop ideas. I had a feel for, we could do this. I like the structuring and the scheduling aspect of creating an event. And so, and then maybe the next day or day after, I got on Airbnb and booked a beach house in Gulf Shores. This was January 2020, right before the stuff hit the fan.
Yeah.
And and so in that first one, I think we had 12 guys. I just went to some friends and friends of friends and said, hey, we're going to do this men's retreat. And it was a assortment of people there for different reasons. And I always feel like it's like that on these retreats. Lots of different reasons people come and a lot of the same reasons. And if someone's urged to come to something that they don't exactly know the details, it's always interesting. Basically, like your shirt says, their mind, body, and spirit. I think about health just writ large for the whole of a person, which I would call their soul, their mind, body, and spirit all together.
Yeah.
And so how do we do workshops that facilitate growth in every domain of someone's life? Yeah. And that leads us to do everything from the way we eat to when we wake up. And, there's a self-defense element, there's cold exposure elements and breathing elements and writing and games,
Yeah, when you were talking about taking people into deep waters earlier, I instantly thought about the whole Wim Hof and like the ice lake thing and all that. Like, yeah. But it's interesting that the metaphor like really pays, like it's like, what is it, art imitating life? Because like in doing that, like we all came out and we were like, I felt closer to everybody in doing that because you're like, your body's under like this most intense stress. Where it's like, hey, you should probably, I remember like, that one day that for anybody wondering, like Wim Hof, look it up. I'm not going to explain all of it right now. But like he does these breathing techniques and he also like, maybe you can explain this better about like the ice baths and stuff like that. Just briefly.
Yeah. I think about, I keep falling deeper and deeper down the well of how significant something as simple as an ice bath is, the daily discipline of that, of a cold shower or something. Today in church, the connection I started to make. So I'm reading a book right now called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and it's rocking my world. And it's about what could be seen as four masculine archetypes that take up residence inside of somebody. And they grow out of Carl Jung's work, but really they grow out of just deeper archetypes that give us a framework for living life. It seems like they're just so foundational. And I was thinking about how, so the Wim Hof Method, for instance, it calls upon these four different things. So you have the kingly element and subjecting yourself to the discipline of something. A king orders, and there's a discipline from the king to do something daily, like getting into the cold. There's the warrior component and the voluntarily facing the unknown and the slaying the dragon, so to speak.
Yeah.
And there's the magician, because you're working with your body chemistry. You're changing physiologically what's going on inside of you. And that's how it ends up affecting stress, anxiety, disease, all those things. It really penetrates very deeply. And in the lover, because you're viscerally getting connected with your sensory world and the presence and the delight in the highs and lows, the senses of life. So I thought, man, this simple practice, it draws all four of these parts of us into the light and asks them to cooperate to get through this battle. Really cool.
Yeah, and then something about experiencing that with other people like brings you closer together with them. So like what I was trying to say earlier is like when we first in our practice of doing this at the men's retreat, we did like the Wim Hof ice thing. We didn't do an actual ice bath, but we went into a lake and it was probably like it was probably 38 degrees outside. I don't know how cold the lake would have been, but it was painfully cold, like in your bones. And I remember like the first time we did it, like I was walking out there and like my feet are sinking into the disgusting mud. But I just remember like how cold, like I've taken cold showers before. I've even I think I've done I did an ice bath once, but it was like everybody was like, it was like a dare and stuff. So I was in there for maybe 5 seconds, probably less. But this was like, oh my gosh, I have never experienced this before. And I remember in my head, it's like another part of my brain was saying to me like, hey, this is extremely painful. You should probably get out of here. Like, I don't know if you could handle this. And then I was like, oh, this is just, I can't listen to this right now because I have to power through this. Like, it's very important for me to do so. And then as I just kept, it's like that quote by Van Gogh where he says, when he's painting, like doubt creeps into his head. He's like, oh, you can't paint. You're terrible at this. This looks ugly. And he just keeps painting and then the voices go away and he finishes a portrait. And so like, I was thinking to that and I was like, and then after a while, like I don't want to say you ever really get used to it per se, but it's much more like you accept it more and it's easier to kind of deal with. But just being out there and being super cold. And then like we all like started singing and like together we sang Amazing Grace towards the end. And I just remember thinking in my head, like, man, this is fabulous. This is one, like all of these men that could be practical strangers, they're all coming together right now through this like mild form of like suffering, but we're finding something. Yeah.
It's real. Yeah. It's very real. And it's like hitting fast forward on community. One guy that went to a retreat a few trips ago, we just did the fourth one, but he was on the third. And he said it felt like the kind of relationships that take 3 years to build happens in 3 days. And,
I agree.
That was, I just had a thought while you were explaining the mental game of being in there, like in Freudian terms. So if you have your id, ego, and superego, and so you have this maybe superego version of here's who I should be, here's my ideal of how I should be responding to this. But then you have the id, your just gut instincts that's like, this is cold, you're freezing to death, dude. Hey, you're freezing to death. And then these are in conversation mediated by your ego. And so it really puts the deepest, most ancient parts of your brain in conversation with your standards and your most lofty ideals of who you should be. And it just forces those into a room to chat with each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, so when you say, in a sense, it gets easier, it's like you get better at having that conversation between your deep fears and urges and who you know you should be.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like what would you say, a training ground, or it's a facilitator of drawing out your fears into the light and having them stand before your potential.
Yeah. Also, I look at it as it kind of is like a volume control, in meaning like once you get out of there, like the rest of the world, the volume like turns down. And so much. It's like in I don't know if you've ever read or watched the movie Fight Club.
Yeah.
But he's like, the narrator's like, he's like, you know what I noticed about when you're fighting all the time, the volume just gets turned down on the rest of your life. Like all these other things that used to agitate you or make you anxious.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you barely just hear them as like a dull whisper. And it shows in the movie, it shows the scene where he's like at work and his boss is like yelling at him about something, but his boss is like, how could you do this? I can't believe it. And it's just really low. And I was like, I think of like the ice bath, ice lake, whatever, like that. It's like you come out and it's like, I feel like I can really deal with anything.
Yeah.
Because to tell people about this, like it's 38 degrees out, and then like we're all these dudes and we're in swim trunks with no shirts on and no shoes. Well, some of us no shoes. Just that alone is pretty painful and uncomfortable, and like, this is a lot to deal with. And then we have like this trek from the top of this hill all the way down, and you're like, oh my gosh. But then when you get in that lake for 5 minutes or however long, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and then you get out, I don't know, like I have no awareness of anything that's worse than what I was just dealing with. And so like it turns the volume down. And I feel like you can use that philosophically too in life. Like it kind of like turns the noise down, trivial things that just really don't matter as much.
Yeah. And I think you use the visceral embodied things to work on your philosophical, assumptions. Like, I think you need to have things in your life where you're willingly subjecting yourself to that volume knob.
Yeah,
because that's certainly been my experience even with fighting. It's the same psychology and mindset as stepping into the cold water. It's like I have to be able to control my breath and stay calm and think about it. I can't get frenzied. And and then after that, you're like, I've been punched in the face today. Like, so the boss is yelling at me. That's way less real than the pain of the hand in the face.
Yeah,
like what's going to happen to someone's going to punch me in the face?
Yeah, okay,
I've already got that out of the way. And so, in my experience,
I've said that to people too, thinking about that concept. Like when somebody's like, they're too scared to talk to somebody, they're not confrontational, right? And they're like, I don't want to like ask them to do this or tell them this or whatever. I'm like, what's the worst that's going to happen? They say no, they get upset, they tell you off, they cuss you out, or they walk away, or they're mad at you. And are they gonna punch you in the face? Are they gonna stab you? Are they gonna push you around? Are they gonna choke you unconscious? Are they gonna stop talking to you? I mean, I don't know. Maybe depending on what it is, they might stop talking to you. But I was like, I think about that for a minute. Like, well, that's unrealistic. I was like, is it?
Yeah.
Is it unrealistic?
Helpful to contemplate the worst case scenarios.
Yeah.
Because if you leave it in a gray, you just have the sinking suspicion that there's a whole lot of horrible outcomes. But if you don't actually articulate those things, clear them up, then they just loom over you. Yeah.
Basically, I feel like it's just humbling. It just makes you more humble. You're just eating humble pie, in simple terms. I feel like that's
a tasty pie.
Yeah, real tasty pie. So you said this was the retreat that I was on with you just recently. That this was your fourth one?
That's fourth one. Yeah.
Wow. And then you've got another one in the works for
in May
summer?
in Panama City Beach.
Ooh.
Yeah, got a house basically on the beach, walking distance. And
yeah. Matt, you want to try to go to that one?
All right.
Maybe. Yeah, I was trying to see if I can drag him. I want to try to get my other friend Terrence also.
Yeah.
To go with it. Me and Georgia were trying to get him to do that, but he was in the middle of having to move out and changing jobs and a bunch of different things like that.
Perfect time to go to a weekend getaway and sort out your priorities.
Sure. Yeah. I feel like that's a good idea. How long do you think you'll keep doing these? The rest of your life? Or do you have like an end goal inside? Or you just kind of just living in the moment with it?
I don't have an end goal to terminate the experiment. I hope to just keep doing them. And each time I feel like it grows and changes and it gets more refined. Mm-hmm. So I'm just along for the ride, really. Nice. Trusting the process.
I love it, man. It's a really great way to connect men, right? I was telling somebody, I was like, this is like the perfect kind of like man thing. Like just man, like masculinity. Like you go there and it has all the wonderful points to like what it is to be like the beauty of being a man, in my opinion. Right? I don't know if there's like a feminist listening. Like, oh, there's nothing beautiful about being a man. Well,
I'll say to them that they have a lot of beauty too.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Everyone. Yeah.
But I kind of looked at it as like there's all these things that like what make it like we do like the physical activity, like the workouts and the sparring, the jiu-jitsu or boxing, or like whatever it is. So you have like that, like the rough housing, the aggression, the aggressive side, right? Mm-hmm. But then we sit around and we like contemplate things. We have debate, and then we're writing down in this notebook, the folders and stuff that you have, and we're like talking about our lives and our beliefs, and we really open up. And so then there's also that sensitivity, right? That a lot of people don't think about when they think of like masculinity or men, like being sensitive and talking about your feelings and opening up. And like, there's something about seeing a grown man break down and cry like a small child. I said this on one of my previous episodes that I don't know how to describe it. It's both heartbreaking, but also beautiful to see like this creature that's supposed to be like tough and strong and surface level, like get that deep and like that come out. And it's just, man, it was so emotionally enriching on so many fronts. But yeah, the physical aspect of it, like the eating, the games, the play, the competition, it's just a perfect package, I think, for what it means to be a man.
I think what I've realized is
romanticize it.
Romanticize away. For all the talk of toxic masculinity and stuff, I think my perspective of that now is that what people are really rejecting in our society is boyhood. What they reject, and there's a baby being thrown out with the bathwater there, or a man thrown out with the boy water, which is there's these kind of shadow components to. There's a boy psychology and there's a man psychology. And I'd say the majority of people in our society, majority of men are boys in their psychology. And boy psychology is something that, ought to be processed through and rejected. And so folks are right. But in labeling that with a toxic masculinity, it's not a precise enough or clear enough look at what's really going on. And you zoom in there and they don't realize that it's for lack of initiation into deeper stages and more mature, responsible stages of being a man. And there's a hunger for that. So there's this simultaneous, while we're rejecting, and the things that you repress end up flaring up. So like in their shadow forms. So in the same era that there's a rejection of toxic masculinity, you've got BDSM and 50 Shades of Grey, blowing up, because that desire doesn't go away for some sort of masculine strength.
Sure.
And even in that's in a twisted form of male masculinity, of men psychology. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to find more nuance in what's going on there, to maybe low resolution of thought, just to say toxic masculinity doesn't really understand what's really going on there.
Yeah, the thing you were saying, like the little boy mentality, I thought that was one I actually forgot to leave out, like the I don't want to say immaturity, but I guess the childishness and innocence of being little boys and being free and playing and being mischievous and stuff. Because we played, I don't remember the game where we're using the Nerf guns and it's like that game Wolf, where like there's like a killer and then there's a sheriff and then there's like village people. But I remember actually it's weird. I'll tell you this. One of my favorite moments there, and there's many like very captivating, soul touching moments that happened for me there, like the ice lake thing, the group talk, the roundtable discussion stuff, the cooking together, the exercising. But I think my actual favorite moment comes when we were playing the game, and I remember I got killed by one of the murderers, and I was laying there holding my Nerf gun that someone had just ended up stealing off of my dead body, quote unquote. And I was watching, I had my eye open. I was just laying there pretending to be dead. And I was watching the rest of the people, they were running, and I saw somebody standing behind the door, and he was smiling, and then there's giggling. And it reminded me of childhood. It reminded me of being a little boy again, playing, cops and robbers or Power Rangers or Ninja Turtles, whatever. And there's something like that. It just felt like this level of innocence. And in it, I was like, man, this is real freedom here. And it was just, I don't know. I actually kind of I teared up a little bit just laying there playing this silly game, and I was like, man, this is really beautiful, man. All these grown men, and they're just having so much fun, little boys, little children, and I don't know, man.
And I almost wonder,
that one really touched me.
like if we'd started, and that was fairly deep into the weekend. I wonder if we'd started with the kind of childish play, if people would have been more reserved. Like, if that came early on, if they would have, in an attempt to try to like prove their manhood, committed less to, playing in a boyish way. And so it's almost like the strength that you start to find in yourself when you find that warrior spirit, you're more free to, you don't have to be so defensive and fronting of like, I'm so tough.
Yeah.
And so the more people felt strong, the more they were able to have the strength to show their emotions. It seemed to be the trajectory of the weekend.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. It's so crazy that this all spiraled out of just a conversation with you and your wife, like just laying there in bed, just staring at the ceiling or whatever. Like, that's wild, man.
Yeah, it's always interesting how one little thing can.
She should start a women's retreat.
That's not her.
That's
her
not
style.
That's not her bag.
If she wanted to, I would fuel that fire with as much encouragement as possible. But she's got probably one of the wisest women I know. It's not for lack of great wisdom, but she's she's the kind of person who's like, I don't want to. She's like, why do churches only have women's Bibles? She's like, studies about how to be a good woman. She's like, I want to go to the like actual theology, men's theology. I want the meat, And so I've always really admired her.
Would you say, what's your wife's name?
Casey.
Casey, do you think, do you and Casey push each other like to be better constantly? Like,
that'd be an understatement. Yeah. Big time.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I feel like more relationship. I'm blessed to have a relationship like that where we constantly challenge each other emotionally, physically, even spiritually about things, and we have a lot of nuance. But it's good because it helps us both grow separately, but also together as a unit. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, some of that's explicit, but a lot of it's just implicit. I heard someone say today, the fastest way to change someone else is to change yourself, because you're connected with each other, and we don't realize the way that our maybe immaturities keep someone locked in their immaturities. Just keep pointing theirs out all day.
Yeah. So another thing about you, going off of like the men's retreat stuff, you do a crap ton of stuff, my man. So you host these level up men's retreats. You also are like a school teacher. I don't know if you're doing that now. You do counseling. You do boxing, martial arts stuff. You sell things. And what else? Oh, you do music, of course. You brought your guitar today. You're going to play some music for us.
Yeah, man.
What you do so much crap, dude. How do you navigate all that? And then also, how did you? Let's go into like how you got into each one of those individually, if we can, in a summary.
That's probably the way to answer the question, is how I got into it. I think because there were certain. Okay, so from a young age, was interested in sports and stuff.
Sure.
Played basketball a lot, in particular. But so I had that kind of athletic interest. So that maybe, and did Taekwondo as a kid.
Nice.
So that kind of opened up the world of the sporty, martial arty, that kind of stuff.
Competition.
Yeah, competition. Yeah. Exactly. Let's see what else is on the maybe enterprisingness in terms of like, how can I sell things?
Yeah.
Whatever that is. So, I don't know. My dad, he's an entrepreneur. The used car salesman, has a used car lot.
Yeah.
So I grew up working on the car lot and selling cars, repoing cars, cleaning cars. Got my salesman's license. So I learned a lot of just general skills in that. So I guess it's like learning certain little skills early on, and then they're all kind of scalable as I get more competence and confidence in those things. Musically, my family was like fairly musical. My dad always had a guitar laying around, and he liked to play and write songs and stuff. So
nice.
So early on, my brother and I would, as soon as we could learn, we played guitar and drums, and we just come home, go into the basement, and just jam out for hours and hours and hours. And
nice.
Argue and yell at each other, and our bandmates are like creeping out awkwardly from the room, like, okay, we got to get out of here.
You're like the two brothers from that band Oasis.
Yeah,
right?
No, that's the to go back to the archetypes, the Warring Brothers thing is no joke. So
yeah,
it's the archetype that I hate, that I'm locked in, but it's for better or worse there, mostly worse. And so the musical stuff started with piano early on, and then some drums, guitar, etc. And started recording myself just early, like cassette recorders, and then that built to where eventually, because I had paid so much money going to recording studios, it's like so expensive to record at some of these places, that I just thought, what if I just invest in gear, learn how to record, have my own studio, that way I can be getting paid to record. And so we got the studio, Four Bird Studio going, which is fun. Get to meet a lot of other musicians that way, and
I bet.
yeah, work with a lot of genres. Yeah, I don't know, man. Just
and then your teaching career.
Yeah, so I think going to college, I knew I wanted to be a teacher and teach something. I think I wanted to.
Well, can I ask what made you? What turned you on to the idea of being a teacher?
Some of that's personality. Like I've always liked to learn. Like as soon as I know something a little better than someone else, I want to then like turn around and if they're interested to show them or demonstrate, or even better, get them to pay me to teach them.
Sure, why not?
And so there's been a lot of that. And I had some awesome teachers growing up, believe it or not. So awesome, even male teachers that I thought, oh man, I'd like to be like them, like to have that kind of job. Awesome youth pastor. So really blessed with good examples that I thought this is something I could be. And yeah, so jumped in not knowing exactly what that meant. And so I was a Bible teacher for the first 6 years or so, high school, and loved that. And then, yeah, now I still get to go in the classroom, but in teaching more of counseling skills and that kind of thing, anger management, how to be a good friend, how relationships work, etc. And that's all the way from elementary, kindergartners on up to middle and high school. And yeah, so pursuing now, channeling that same teaching, I guess, passion toward more counseling specific things. And yeah, hoping to have a private practice one day where I can counsel.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's like one of your future ambitions is to, it's like, nice. This is cutting out again. What's going on, Matt? What are you doing to me? I'm just kidding. Actually, I'm not kidding. It was clipping, but
it's back.
I think we're good. Boom. Are we back? We're back. Mic handling. I mean, I like to grab it, It's like, hey man, I can't help it. I'm a man, dude. I grab my mic. Okay, sorry. I mean, Matt argues sometimes during the show about very silly things. Like a married couple, right? I've known Matt since I told you this earlier, since we were 12 years old. We're still keeping in contention with each other as the rest of our childhood friends are kind of just far abound around us.
That's great.
It's great, and it's also kind of, it's like bittersweet. We're all growing up, doing our own lives, but also we used to be such a tight-knit unit. I made that comment when we were doing like discussions at the retreat about like how I had like a brotherhood of friends that I kind of don't have the luxury of so much now. And I felt that at the retreat with probably like 85% of the people I did not know there. So interesting.
Yeah. Heard somebody say that men are meant to start gangs.
Start gangs?
GANGS. That's
is that scientific?
a healthy impulse, so to speak, to get brotherhoods together.
Sure.
And so you see whether it's monks or literal gangs or whatever these kind of communities. Teams. Yeah. Right.
That's wow. That's a good point. I never really actually sat down and thought about that in depth.
So that may be like if there's a deficit that you sense in your being, like that's one place to look, say, am I a member of something that like that?
Yeah. Well, I'm building an empire here, so I'll have like all these, I'll have my own X-Men. Professor X. So you, let's talk a little cultural stuff, right? Your mom she's half Korean, but she's from Korea, correct?
That's right.
Can we do that origin story?
Yeah, it's one of those things that my family's story really showed me a lot about just identity in general, that it's not like I just sprung up and I am who I am because of me. Everything goes back probably to the beginning, infinite regress, but at least there's parts of my personality that I can directly tie to the Japanese invasion of Korea, mid-century, so it's so amazing. So my Korean grandmother had an insane hard life, being abused by certain soldiers, and she ran 3 brothels in Korea. And this is my Korean grandmother, my Harmony. And so my mom grew up in that environment, and her dad was an American soldier that passed through, I guess,
right,
during the war. And so she didn't grow up knowing him, and so she just grew up. She was the only half, I guess, Caucasian don't use that word.
My ex-girlfriend called it half-breed.
Yeah, there you go.
So she called me. She was like, you're not a half-breed. I know half-breeds and you don't look like them. That's what she told me.
Yeah.
She's Vietnamese.
Yeah. Interracial, I guess. Yeah. And so the rest of her family, though, brothers and cousins, everyone else was full.
Right.
Yeah. All she knew was Korean and Korean culture.
You think she got ostracized for that?
She did,
for
yeah.
Being
when she was over
part,
there, for being part white. Yeah.
White.
Not being Korean enough, that kind of thing. Got teased for that from the kids. And then when she was 12, her mom sent her to America, put her up for adoption, and sent her away from the family.
Okay.
And which is wild, to be 12 and sent her to a country where she didn't know the language.
Yeah.
So at 12, she shows up in the States, adopted by a single mom in Minnesota and a sister there, and had to learn English. There she got teased for being the chink, and which I don't know if you've ever been called that word.
I haven't, but my mother has.
Yeah.
And so I've had to, I have, but not like maliciously.
Yeah,
Anyways,
just,
I'm not gonna
just
go into that.
playfully.
Yeah, like guys busting your balls and stuff.
Yeah.
Like my friends or whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, my mom dealt with a decent amount of racism being here in this country. So not like a lot, but like there's pretty, heart-wrenching stories. So
yeah. And so then my mom got into drugs and went through rehab facilities, and you can imagine what the difficulties of all that was going on. And
it's a lot of weight.
Yeah. So at some point she steals a car with some friends, and they're maybe 15, and they're going to what they saw as the promised land, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And so they're
The promised land.
like dining and dashing their way, trying to get to Myrtle Beach where life will be amazing and free.
Sure.
And end up like getting put in jail in Tennessee. And this pastor comes in to visit one of his youths who's in jail, and sees her and inquires and gets the story and calls her mom, adopted mom, and says, can she come live with me? And he bails her out. She goes to live with him, becomes a Christian, goes through, I'm really compressing a whole lot here. Goes through Teen Challenge, it's an organization, and some different things. But yeah, so long story short, that's her story, and meets my dad at a used car lot, and yeah,
She's buying a car.
Yep.
Nice. So he sold her a car and sold her his heart. That's sweet.
Yeah.
Was that still in South Carolina? How did
Yeah, they
you
didn't make it
guys-
to. So that was in Tennessee.
Oh, Tennessee.
Yeah, in
Okay.
Tennessee and Manchester, Tennessee, where Bonnaroo is where that went down with where she was put in jail and kind of bailed out. But the Chattanooga area, North Georgia, kind of where I was raised.
Okay.
And then my whole Korean side of the family moved over to the States. So I grew up knowing all of them. Like they were there by the time, and maybe that's why they sent her, so that they could plant roots in America, and then
Maybe.
low key come on over. So they were disappointed. They expected they were going to show up and she'd be established and married, and I think she was in a trailer park at the time, and with my older sister, and they were like, "What?" And so yeah, both my mom and dad came from a lot of poverty and really hard backgrounds, and abuse and death and all sorts of some hard stuff. So yeah,
Wow.
my dad was torn back and forth between his parents multiple times, and they would haul them off and hide them, and so he's up in the mountains without plumbing for a stretch. And
Jeez Louise.
yeah,
How did you all end up in Alabama?
Yep. So after I finished my master's in teaching, looking for a teaching job, and there was one open in Birmingham, and
I
so
see.
that's what drew me to Birmingham.
Wow. So you were not a native then.
I'm not.
You're a Tennessean. I don't know how to say it.
Tennessee,
Go Vols.
North Georgia. Yeah, there you go. I
Oh
don't
my
have
gosh.
any football allegiances,
Well,
but
then you just got to get out of here, man.
I do feel nostalgic.
You're
for,
either
yeah.
Roll Tide or War Eagle, bro. You can't, can't be lukewarm. You get spit out.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that Bible reference to football.
Yeah, I don't care too much.
Yeah.
But no, good for people that's their gang. Hey, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Pretty crazy stuff, man. So you do boxing too, right? You were talking about earlier about fighting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
For people listening, tell them about.
After college, I played tennis in college, and that's how I met my wife. We were both on the tennis team.
Oh, wow.
So after college, just kind of looking into a way to maybe I just seen like some MMA fights and thought these guys are in great shape and they have great practical skills.
Sure.
And it would be great to like figure that out,
Mhm.
to have that, And so I just looked up and I Googled maybe MMA gyms, Birmingham, did a 30-day trial at a place and really enjoyed that. and then found another place that was cheaper where I could continue to go.
Yeah.
And so for a couple of years, went pretty consistently and learned basics in boxing and kickboxing and jiu-jitsu and a little bit of wrestling. And that was a fun tribe as well of people.
Have you ever had to use any of your self-defense techniques in like real life? Any squabbles or things, violent situations?
Since I've been training, no.
It's weird, right?
Yes
like,
and no, I guess.
Before you, because I've taken martial arts too. We've had this conversation, but after I started learning all that stuff and kind of learning like basic things about how to fight and grapple or do a proper choke and just different things like that, just general self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
I never really had any issues with that. But prior to that, I've been in like, and also somebody could, I guess, write that off as like, well, you were younger too. True, you get older. There's a propensity to not, I guess, get into crazy calamities. But before that point, I got into a handful of fisticuffs, and I just think it's so interesting because later on when I was training, I was like, man, I wish I would have been training this back then, and maybe my lip wouldn't have been split as bad or had as bad of a black eye, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and when I think about like the question of do I use my training, I think I use it every single day. Like I think the mindset, the situational awareness, the staying calm under pressure. I feel like I have less trying to like peacock and less of that kind of thing. Feel more comfortable. I think the training carries over daily, even if it's not like having to put hands on somebody. So I still try to stay up on the training as well as even though I don't go as consistently now.
Yeah, it's really good. It really all the times that I've taken it throughout the years and tried to stay consistent with it. It really helped my mental discipline about things. Right, not even just like physically, I'm healthier, stronger, better cardio, know how to defend myself with technique and stuff. But like just in like my everyday tasks, like doing things, like taking the trash out, something that simple. Like it really helped with that stuff. I used to do when I was doing Krav Maga and Muay Thai boxing with my buddy Matt. Shout out Matt Holder, PI if anybody needs a private investigator. We were doing that, and I was also doing ballroom dancing, and they really helped each other. Like me doing the martial arts helped me with ballroom dancing, and the ballroom dancing really helped me doing the martial arts because of the movements, the steps, and the footwork. And I love that stuff, man. It's really cool. It's practical, but also it's art, martial art. So I love art.
Yeah, and if you think about the martial artists, like the Eastern martial artists, they were not what someone would say toxically masculine. They were masters of self-control and masters of peace and harmony and poetry and chivalry and all these things. So I think that just goes to show that you don't want to suppress the strength of masculinity because then it just blows up in your face in a really unhealthy way.
Sure.
And these people that really leaned into it integrated it very well. Yeah,
Miyamoto Musashi wrote the book of Five Rings. Like one of the greatest warriors of all time, killed 60 men. He was just an undefeated, vicious champion, right? In feudal Japan or whatever that was. And he has the book. He talks about like the concept of how he like being this like warrior. Like you just think like, oh, he's this bloodthirsty Neanderthal, but he's not. He was like very poetic, he was a very romantic person, and his practice of calligraphy and art and gardening and brewing tea and finding ginseng root and different things like that. He applied that to the things that he did in war. And, he talks in one part of the book about like how it's not convenient and like taking a life is not like, it's something that has to happen, right? Based on what he's doing, but it's not something that he enjoys to do, right? It's just like a task, and how he became such a great warrior because people wanted to write so many stories about how he was so good and he was undefeated, and he perfected I forget what the technique is called, but using two swords. Right. And he was like, oh, because I meditate a lot and I garden, and like he was like integrating, and people back then they didn't understand like what they're supposed to be separate. He's like, well, they're really not. They're all practices of oneself and like discipline and stuff like that. Man, it's a really great book. Yeah.
And it's amazing to learn from someone who like you go, what is the psychology of a guy who with a sharp blade in his hand stood across another guy, and sometimes multiple, with a sharp blade, and had to put his life on the line many, many, many times, and successfully killed all these people.
Yeah, right.
And it's just a wild thing. Yeah. And like you said, more and more I'm just like convinced that everything is there's just one thing, like that maybe it's like if you become a master in one thing, if you let yourself go down far enough down one line, those principles transfer. I guess a lot of people don't let themselves become a master in something. But yeah, those same principles are going to work almost everywhere. So yeah, how about that gardening principles? Or if you've heard Bruce Lee talk about, be like water, my friend. Yeah. So I was at the zoo yesterday, and I was like, I bet I could walk around with a journal to each animal exhibit, bird, monkey, whatever, and write down and extract a principle of movement from each of these animals that are just instinctually doing what they've been designed to do. And those things would be effective to integrate into my life, just for my own health and for, say, even self-defense, which I guess that is what, you get the crane style and monkey style and all these things.
Yeah.
They're paying attention to living within nature and nature's movements. Yeah.
Yeah. That's wild. Look at us talking about martial arts. It's great.
Yeah. Just two-part Asian dudes just talking about martial arts.
That's what we do, man. We're fitting the stereotype.
Yeah.
Stereotypes exist for a reason.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Should have brought you some kimchi as a peace offering.
You should have. You should have wore your gi.
Yeah. I wore a kimono last night. We had a Chinese New Year dumpling party.
Word.
Yeah. So we made dumplings.
Dude,
and had a bunch of people.
Can you speak Korean?
Just
A little bit.
the Korean I know is stuff that my mom would yell at us in public so that others wouldn't know. Paboya, like this like idiot. Bongo gesso, like did you fart? Like stuff like that.
Are you taking notes, Matt?
I can say 안녕하세요 and 감사합니다 and I know some of the Korean foods and stuff, but I'd get lost in a conversation for sure.
Yeah, same here. I always tell people if I ever go to Vietnam, I know enough to like get to a place or something, get around. Like, oh, where's the restaurant? I gotta pee. Hi.
Yeah.
But like as far as like trying to have a conversation, it would just be hilarious. I've tried before. Like I used to, one of my ex-girlfriends is Vietnamese, and I'd go to like these Vietnamese parties and I would try to speak. And they'd just laugh at me, make fun of me. And I was like,
can you do a good Vietnamese American accent?
Let me see that. Hello.
Why you say that to me, though?
I don't know.
There's a lot of those glottal stops, which are really cool. Like that's a cool part of the.
Micho. Maybe
are you channeling your mom right now?
You don't call mama.
Okay.
What I call you? You never answer. What be called? What? I don't know.
That's pretty good, man.
My friend Thomas can imitate my mother better than anybody I've ever met, and he's just this typical just white boy, just this white guy, and yeah, it's so. He's actually called me once before. And he was pretending to be mama. He's like, Micho, yeah, baby, wake up, hey. And I was like, I answered it, but I saw it said his name came up on the phone. So instantly it fooled me like for a few seconds. I was like, oh, he must have seen my mom at the store. And then she asked to call me from his phone. And I didn't think like she has her own cell phone. She wouldn't do that. I didn't think. And then I was like, wait, dude, this is time. F you, man.
Yeah.
And he was laughing.
He's good.
Yeah, he got me.
Also, your mom has a deep voice.
Yeah,
apparently.
Right. Yeah, she's crazy. She's nuts. Brandon Snipes. There's so much stuff I want to talk to you about. We try to keep these shows within the confines of an hour or so. That's why you have to be a repeat guest, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about even more things.
Sure.
But now we get to the part of the show where I try to take people a little bit deeper, right to the point. Emotional health, essentially. When they say this, I mean, is it? I don't know. It's not really up for me to decide, I guess. As this thing grows, I guess I'll have to really make sure that my niche market is on there according to my marketing friends that I have. But what are the some of the things that you, sir, nowadays, what do you wrestle with? What are the monsters under your bed and demons in your closet that you try to fight with and overcome your adversities?
Yeah, you would have thought I would have thought about this knowing that I was coming on the Wrestling Diaries.
Well, you thought we were going to talk about Hulk Hogan, right? Like everybody else?
I wrestle a lot with ideas. And then I wrestle with I wrestle with ideas. And what that means in part is that I start with kind of strategically, I started with introducing myself to a new idea that's maybe just fringe of where I currently am. And so it's different, but it's familiar enough. This would be, for my educators out there, Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. And
that's a mouthful.
Yeah, the zone of proximal development. It's proximal to your comfort zone and familiarity, but it's but it's going to cause you to reach. And so kind of growth happens in that comfort zone, as opposed to like if we were just tossed in a Vietnamese classroom, that would be way outside of our zone. And but somewhere where there's a mixture.
Yeah,
it's like how kids learn to speak. You talk to them just above their communication level, but if you talk to them in extremely complicated, or if you go gaga goo goo, then they're not going to ever learn.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I try to just interact with ideas that are in that little realm, that zone, and then I try to find out if they're true. And this is part of the wrestling that I'm always engaged in. And I find out if they're true by trying them out. And it's like, does this work? Fairly pragmatic in that. And I define that as basically, does it work not only in the short term, but also in the medium term and the long term? And some of that I can outsource to reading about others. Like I come across an idea, I don't have to try it out myself. I can read in a book. Here's somebody who's actually taken that idea and gone with it. Like, how did that work out for them? How did it work out for that nation that tried to implement that idea in the short, medium, and long term? Okay, and the more it works in the long term and at all those levels, the more true it is. So the more likely I'm going to adopt that as a core principle. Also, does it work not only to make my life better, but does it work to make the lives of those tiers of people around me better? Is my family benefiting? Is my community? Because maybe, you try something and you're like, my life rocks, and everyone around you is more miserable because you're off on this whatever journey. You say, well, that's less true. That idea is less compelling. So I run the idea kind of through these things. What effect is this having on my family? Wow, my family's life is a lot better. My communication is better. There's less stress in the household. Wow, my broader community is benefiting from this. There's something here. And so trying to embody those ideas, because you have to embody them to like live them out. And I was like in James, I was reading today, it's like be a doer of the word and not just a hearer. I think that's part of that. Like if it stays in your head, you're dead. You don't understand something unless you stand under it. I think that's the idea. So that's pretty abstract. But so right now it's getting to know right now the ideas I'm wrestling with are that king, warrior, magician, lover, these masculine archetypes. We'll get into the feminine in due time in my reading. And then, how does incorporating these, balancing these in my head help my life and help those around me? Does it make me stronger? And and then what can I do? What practices can I cultivate? Like a sword fighter who's gardening, he's not just moving on the warrior edge, he's moving on the lover edge and the magician edge. Right. And so, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that was great, man. That's very well articulated.
Yeah.
So in finality, in closing up the show, I have a question to ask people. It's a two-parter. And the first half of it goes, what is one of the saddest or most painful moments that you've had to endure in your life? And what lesson did you take away from it?
I thought I was holding my dead daughter in my arms less than a year ago. So she's about to turn 2 this week. Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
She has epilepsy. And we didn't know at first, the first time she had a seizure, there was no convulsing or anything. It was just like, what the heck is happening? Eyes roll in the back of the head, goes like stiff and limp. And I'm driving through red lights, holding her, trying to talk her into consciousness, and she's just not there. And I'm like beginning the process of making peace with God in my head. Of like, okay, this is my life. And then we're running through the ER and nurses are freaking out and someone's having the gall to tell me to put a mask on. Like I'm literally barefoot, just sprinted out of the front of my house and get her back in there and hear some crying from her. And it was like, praise the Lord for the crying. And anyway, so we had a little patch of no seizures and then had a few more and then a patch of no and a few more. So it's been the longest stretch right now since she started having seizures of no seizures. And so we're just looking at that from all different levels. Got a neurologist, primary care, chiropractic, cranial, facial, whatever, different kind of nutrition. Her nutrition's crazy on fleek. But there were moments even like a few months ago where I'm standing outside of the hospital because they wouldn't let me into the ER with my daughter because of COVID regulations. Only my wife or only one of us could be in there. So I'm out there having real frank conversations with God. and I must have looked like a crazy person from those driving by. And yeah, so that was probably the most recent dark place. Let's see, lessons learned. I'll continue to learn what the heck's going on. Definitely one takeaway from that is I'd cherish every little moment, every freaking moment. Love it. Have FOMO anytime I'm away from her. Soak in when I can be there. And yeah, just being that close to what really did feel like the edge and loss. It's like, yeah, it just makes me really cherish her and my wife. Yeah.
Oh, man, that's heavy, man. All right. Second half of the question. What is one of the happiest or joyous moments in your life that you've got blessed with or witnessed to? And what do you take away from that?
Yeah. I mean, if we keep with the theme, we didn't think we were going to have her to begin with, my daughter. Like we tried almost 6 years before we got pregnant. We'd even started into adopting that process. We'd basically come to the place in our mind where like, okay, this isn't what is for us to have a baby. And I had to come to peace with like, I'll not have a baby who looks like me and has my genetics, but it'll still be mine if, when we adopt. And then that was just a beautiful surprise. And so even when she was just a little fetus and stuff, I remember just like, we wanted to name her as soon as we found out her gender, just so that we could start to really relate and appreciate and talk to her. And because we don't know how long of a journey we're given with her. And so even if it was like, 8 months and then pregnancy ended, God forbid, like we wanted to really be like, we, had a connection with her, and that was what God gave us with her. So, joyous moments. Yeah. The healthy birth of Zoe, which means life.
Wow. Amen and amen. That was great, man. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I didn't know that about you. So, wow.
Sir.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on today, dude. Did you have fun?
Loved it. Yeah. I like to talk. It's good.
Yeah. You did a really awesome job, man. I got to say to anybody listening or that watches this, and even to you, this is the first episode that I've had, and I've had like over 80 people on the show before. This is the first time I've had a show with somebody where I felt like this just wasn't enough. Like we clocked in about an hour, I think, on this, and I just feel like it wasn't enough. Like there's just so much I want to talk to you about.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess maybe just because of the different things of how I met you and all that. And you just have a lot, you're a very like interesting person, and you do a lot of things, and you have a lot of goals. And yeah, I just feel like there's so many things, but like I said, you have to come on the show again, man. Especially after maybe after you do like the next retreat, come on here. And
I'd love to
talk about those things. But before I sign us off of here, man, let me get you to plug in the Level Up Retreat, how people can get involved with that and get set up with it, and anything else that you do.
We'll just rattle off some plugs here.
Yeah, plug in.
Yeah, please come. If you're a guy, especially, well, I guess it's just a men's retreat at this point. I'd like to do women's at some point. If you're a guy that if you're listening to this and that there's more for you out there, if you're feeling frustrated, if if I'm talking to you right now, and that you're not drawing on your potential, and you just want to encourage you that a beautiful life is ahead of you, and this might be the step that you need to take to get out of your comfort zone, meet amazing guys, and start jump-starting some positive habits that'll just rock your world. So that men's retreat is May 13th through 16th in Panama City Beach, Florida. And you can email levelupthislife@gmail.com, or find a way to, you can email the Wrestling Diaries show. We can plug you in, but we'll do a Wrestling Diaries discount. Enter code WRESTLE at checkout.
Nice.
For 10% off.
I love this.
Yeah. Just started a vintage clothing thing over the last week. So Dad Vintage.
I saw that on Instagram. Yeah. It looks cool, man.
We got some cool threads up there. So you can go buy some clothes there. Forbird, if you're a music guy or girl and you got a band or singer-songwriter or whatever, Forbird's studio in Vestavia. So come record. That'd be fun. Other than that, if you want to do some personal training or boxing training or just have coffee.
Yeah, I need to get with you on just about all those things you just said, especially I'm going to get back into doing martial arts stuff, boxing and all that.
Yes.
Dude, thank you so much for being on the show, brother.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Mr. Brandon Snipes. If you like our content, go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Radio Public. Leave us a review. Helps us show up in the algorithms. For the video content, go to YouTube. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Hit the notification bell for more content we release once to a couple times a week. I usually give these final thoughts. Today's episode, all I can really sum it up is really enjoying and understanding you all of your problems that you might have, I feel like might not be as big as you think they are. And sometimes you have to kind of look outside of yourself and really kind of think about what's going on. We stay in so much comfort, right? This is all we know. It's first world problems, right? People are dying and being tortured. Ask people in Ukraine right now, how they feel about their lives. I saw a grandmother the other day. They were training her how to use an AK-47. That's how bad it is. And so I see this country sometimes and the things that people get offended by and they get up and ended, they're so upset about. And I'm just there's just such silly, trivial things. There's so much worse out there. And maybe you should really think about doing things to push yourself. A little bit of humble pie can taste very, very delicious if you let it. And I don't know. I challenge people to really really go outside of themselves and think about how things could be so much more worse, and you could really count your blessings and be have gratitude for something, right? Because we're here for a very short time in life, and I think it's good to find something that has meaning in it, and not always try to find out how your glass is half empty. But I don't know, just some regular guy on a show. These are my thoughts. Hopefully people get something out of this show. Tell me, what do you wrestle with and how can you beat it? One love.
All right. This is Count Past 91. And there we go. How'd it go? Sweet. Yeah. It's a weird sound. Didn't really commit to it.
I was a calm little creeper, and you were the first girl I knew who wasn't my sister, my mother, or some random lady who taught at my school. And I could spell your name correctly, and you could count past 91. And now you're the magic nostalgia that I can't stop singing about in my songs. And I love you for making me better, even though I don't see you today. If you're too scared to run, you'll have to walk away. Yep. Fate is a terrible teacher. Well, I can't keep up with her plans, and the future insists that we can't reminisce till the moment is out of our hands. And sometimes the radio knows me, and sometimes the stars all align. Yeah, but most of my days I'm a ride in a maze. Check my cell phone at every stop sign. And maybe the way to get happy is moving away from this place. If you're too scared to run, you'll have to walk away. Here's where the bridge goes. I haven't rode it yet, but I'll ride it soon, and it'll be good, you bet. Hey! Hey! Someone is drinking a tonic at the Okona Hotel. Turkish Delight stole a boy from the light on his first trip to Cair Paravel. He didn't know he was searching for a lion on which to depend. To the glistening eastern sea I give you Queen Lucy the Valiant. Oh, and me and my friends wrote some letters. We were still back in third grade. stars, there'd be no more letters, let alone a blank page. But we won't let our progress divide us. No, we're going out in a blaze as the cathode ray tube shines its light on the moon, where we'll live for the rest of our days. And thank you for showing me patience when I kept falling down on my face. If you're too scared to run, you'll have to walk away. Too scared to run, you'll have to walk away.